Restaurant Unstoppable, inspire, empower, and transform the industry. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, the co-founder and CEO of Flyfish Club, David Rodolitz. David, my man, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I'm feeling unstoppable.
Man.
Thanks for having me.
I'm psyched to have you here, man. We've been actually talking a lot about Flyfish Club and the network and what you guys are doing. I've been looking forward to making an example of you, learning from you. And we have you here today. It's going to happen. But before we dive into what you've created with Flyfish Club, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us today?
Estee Lauder actually has said this, and I love it. I never dreamed about success. I worked for it. I just think that really hits home, and it's how I've always operated, and I'll continue to operate. So just go get it.
Great way to get this thing started. And where does it make sense to start sharing your story? Because you've been in the industry for 20 years. Just real quick, kind of give us the fast forward version of how you got to where you are today.
Super fast, very entrepreneurial. Been working since I've been 13 years old, local bowling alley, pizza delivery guy. Just kind of always had this in me that I liked working and putting in time into something and seeing that relationship between effort and then, compensation or reward. It just made sense to me. Went to college, Smith School of Business, University of Maryland, created an event planning company there, became the social chair to pretty much the entire Greek life of University of Maryland, doing large scale events, bringing in DJs from New York City, busing people to Washington, D.C., busing people to Baltimore, creating a good business. Continue to do that through my young 20s, created a nightlife marketing and promotions company in New York City, while also developing this event planning company. Owned and operated nightclubs, lounges, and bars. Late 20s, segued into the restaurant space. Met Alex Stupak, who was a decorated chef. Teamed up with Alex and a couple other guys that I knew, created Empeon, which is a Mexican-inspired restaurant group. We now have 5 stores with a couple under construction. Operated that alongside Alex from 2011 to 2019. Left the day-to-day in 2019 to just work on stuff that, I wanted to do on my own. COVID came around 2020. Quickly pivoted into a hospitality consulting and management company because I didn't want to have any liabilities or, large operations at that time, or I didn't want to take on a lease at that time. So I just quickly made a new company that packaged this, what I've always done for myself, for other people, help people navigate through COVID, PPP, payroll protection program, restructuring, renegotiating with landlords, did that for a year and a half. Late 2020, Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a close friend of mine, who's also invested in some other projects of mine. He and I were spending a lot of time together over COVID, and we were just excited with the idea of kind of layering up his marketing, branding, and technology expertise on top of hospitality, food and beverage operators. We thought that those synergies would create something really interesting. So in early 2021, VCR Group was born, which stands for Vaynerchuk Capon, which stands for Josh Capon, and Rodolitz. That was, the initials of all of us. And that's what created VCR Group. We also have a 4th partner named Connor Hanlon, who's a very decorated chef that joined us just right after VCR Group was conceptually formed. So it's a group of 4 partners that are very charismatic, passionate operators. And the general thesis behind VCR Group is to leverage media and technology to find new ways to modernize and monetize food and beverage. It's a beautiful industry, food and beverage, but it's very challenging. Relying on restaurant EBITDA is a very difficult way to proceed. Occupancy is extremely expensive. Rent, labor costs continue to go higher, and there's just very little left for operators. So, with this partnership, a VCR group with Gary, it allows us to think about things a little bit differently through media and technology, find new ways to hopefully, create new financial models. Flyfish Club was the first exhibit of that. In March of 2021, Gary came into my house, got all hot on NFTs, just went on the record and said, NFTs are going to change everything. We need to quickly think about how we're going to rally around this and create value for our community and ourselves, and think of ways to do that for VCR Group. Came up with 10 ideas. The one that stuck was a members club, which has been around for a long time, but through NFTs, which essentially at its core, they authenticate ownership, and you could easily transfer or sell that ownership and create a lot of different financial vehicles throughout that smart contract. You could create a relationship of always staying involved, and royalties. A smart contract allows you to do that. We got very excited about what this meant. Flyfish Club was born, and it's essentially a members only club, but instead of renting a social experience like most of the clubs that we all know, where you pay a due and an initiation and have to do an application process, instead of all of that, you buy our token, you own your membership, it is yours, you buy it once, and you could do what you want with it. The intent of the club is for people to use their memberships and to hold on to their memberships. But if you choose to not want to participate anymore, if you move out of town, if it's just, not interesting, you could sell it, you could lease it. So it's a completely different value proposition to our community. It's a tremendous innovation, and we're pumped about it. And it gives us an ability to have a few ways of generating income between upfront sales, ongoing royalties through the smart contract whenever a token is sold.
Yeah, I want to get into that. I want to start pulling back the layers in that. And I thank you very much. That's exactly what I was looking for. Just a 30,000 foot cruising high altitude picture of how you got to where you are today. But before we really start pulling back the layers on Flyfish Club, I'm just kind of curious if we can go back to 2019. You had your partner, Alex. You were with him for almost
8.5 years.
You said you wanted to see what you could do on your own. You're interested to try different things. What was going through your head? Get it back into the mindset you were in 2019.
2019, and it was brewing for a bit. Chef-driven restaurant group. Alex is a tremendous operator and chef, very talented. I think what I was experiencing was I gained confidence through the Empeon days. My relationships were growing. My expertise and know-how, I think, was growing. And I think, we were a group of 4 partners at the time. I think my confidence and excitement and entrepreneurial drive all continue to grow. And I don't think that by being a partner of Empeon and doing that alongside, multiple partners and everyone needing to agree and, where are we going? And I just felt like I had some other ideas that I wanted to deploy. I always had this entrepreneurial thing since I've been, a teenager, of just kind of going and grinding and coming up with ideas and activating them and building teams. And I felt a little less entrepreneurial towards the later part of my Empeon days. I'm very proud of what we created together. But I wanted to deploy some of my own ideas by myself.
What were some of these ideas? What was going through your mind? I know you're making a great point. When you're in a partnership with multiple people, it's hard to get that creative freedom because you have to get your partners to buy in. And sometimes they might want to go in one direction. You want to go in another direction, and you got to do what's best for the group. So I could see that desire to want to get away to test.
We were really, we were selling, Empeon is a Mexican inspired group. We do a very, we have sister concepts, but they're all in this Mexican thread or Mexican inspired thread. And there's a lot of other cuisines I love. I recently opened up an omakase, Japanese restaurant called Ito with Masa Ito and Kevin Kim. I love sushi. There's a lot of other things that I wanted to do that match some of my passions. And, there was another layer to that. I was moving out of the city to suburbia, and I saw a lot of white space at the time. There was a theme of, in affluent suburbia, I found that there was a void of elevated food and beverage. I felt like that generally was only found in, major cities, and I didn't understand why. And after I spent a year trying to do it myself, mass transportation, the workforce was different, the density, population, the traffic patterns were different. I learned why it was very difficult to create certain, and it doesn't mean that other markets, people haven't done it. You're definitely seeing talented operators and chefs in other, suburban markets doing, beautiful projects that are great. I had an interest to try to bring that to, affluent suburbs right outside of New York City. And I think, that thought wasn't as calculated as I thought. And I learned the nuances to it. The reasons behind it, were pretty compelling why not to try to do it. But I was moving to suburbia, and I wanted that, I wanted to try to bring this elevated product to suburbia and also match my quality of life. And
so was that the driving force? Is really just like, I got to this point where I'm doing this elevated food in the city. What can I bring this to suburbia? Does this have like, can we bring
people in suburbia generally were the people in New York City? They just moved because they had kids.
Yeah, so their palate has been elevated, and they want to continue that expectation to their new lifestyle.
100%.
So was it just the cuisine that in the area through which you wanted to implement this cuisine that was driving this change for you, or were you starting to think at this time too, there's a better business model out there, there's a better way?
The business model's idea really came about, what we're seeing with Flyfish Club. That really is a byproduct of the partnership with Gary. I've been thinking about that the industry needs new ways to make money for a while, but I haven't, come out with a project until Flyfish Club that really showcases that. I've been thinking about it for a while, but this partnership with Gary was really the first example of it. Listen, it was everything from quality of life, moving to the burbs, wanting to be on my own, thinking I was more, I was in a partnership and everybody played their role. But I think, I felt my role, I was probably worth more than maybe my partners felt like I was worth, not right or wrong, just a feeling of self-worth and where I want to spend my time. So, and, I'm a good partner. Those guys are great guys. Like there's no animosity. Just felt like I could do things on my own. I'm going to put in all this time. I'm going to absorb all this stress. And I feel like there's a bigger waterfall or bigger opportunity for me on my own than wrapped in a group, with a bunch of other partners.
So at what point do you cross paths with Gary Vaynerchuk?
So Gary and I have been friendly probably for about 10 to 12 years. In 2014, Gary invested in MPayOwn. So we started some of our business, interactions. Our friendship continued to grow, from all of those times and spending time together. And, Gary watches how people operate. He watches how you are in good times and in bad times. He sees everything. And then, just a relationship continued to grow. Gary bought one of my best friend's business, and that just continued to make us all spend more time together. And then over COVID, it just really kind of hit that we talked about opportunity. We talked about where there's a void. We talked about, what would look attractive on the back end of COVID, and decided to just take a big swing and create a new company together.
We're going to take our first break to thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back to talk about what those conversations look like. Because I'm really interested to be a fly on the wall for those conversations. So maybe we can kind of recreate what those conversations look like. We'll be right back. You started talking to us about how you met Gary and how you guys have started to talk. There's a lot of downtime during the pandemic. You guys started the visioning process. Like, what's possible? Where are there voids? Where were there voids? Where was this opportunity that you guys were discussing?
Yeah, I mean, the original starting dialogue with Gary actually started with a company called Bojangles. A friend of mine owns Bojangles. It's a fried chicken brand out of the South, and Gary is on the board of Bojangles and helping with marketing and branding. And Bojangles was ready to make a move to the Northeast, and we were talking about getting development rights and taking over all of New Jersey and opening up 50 to 100 stores. That's where the convo started with Gary. And then it just quickly spiraled into other things. We started sharing ideas of, different restaurants that we love or want to create, different ways to leverage media in restaurants. So then Bojangles was the connectivity in the beginning, but then it quickly became that shit. We're very, we have endless ideas. We definitely have confidence. We have relationships, and we're like, let's do all of these other things. And then quickly decided, that Bojangles wasn't the right move for us at the time, of just kind of pumping out this, QSR fried chicken brand that we love, but wasn't really, the biggest creative process. So
Yeah,
that's where it started.
Bojangles franchise, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So you're this other friend that you're talking about was a franchisee.
No, not a franchisee. He owns. He's a private equity guy. He bought the business.
Got it. Thank you very much for the clarification. Yeah. So you are. I mean, there isn't a lot of room for creative freedom in big companies like that.
Right.
So if you really want to be creative, you got to start small, and there's much more room to pivot and to adapt and to be a minimum viable product, right? Wow. So what were these ideas that you were talking about, ways to leverage media that weren't happening? Can you get into that?
I mean, we were talking about virtual concepts for a while. That was a big part of the business model in the beginning. Come up with virtual concepts. You saw what Mr. Beastburger did, and the tremendous scale he was able to achieve, so shortly because of his platform and his, all of his loyal followers. So between, Gary's abilities in that world, and, we were thinking of creating virtual concepts, and then, backing into brick and mortar, come up with a virtual concept, test it, get some very cheap second floor space, to try the concept in smaller brick and mortar locations, and really, kind of deploy this virtual concept, which you saw a lot of these ghost kitchens and virtual concepts popping up over the pandemic, so we were hot on that. We had so many ideas, and we still do, create another great QSR brand to rival some of the other better ones. Right now, we've had a lot of conversation about pickleball. Gary recently became an owner of Major League Pickleball. We think there's a great crossroads between, kind of like a Top Golf with pickleball, a high-end restaurant, more for like adult entertainment with pickleball, so there's endless ideas, but the first real deployment of our ideas was Flyfish Club, where, we're devoting 90% of our attention to right now. We're very committed to that execution.
So back to this idea of leveraging your virtual assets to grow concepts, and this avoid with media or opportunity with media. Is that kind of where you're getting at, where you have these influencers that are online that have huge influence? How do we leverage this influence? How do we go to these people who have influence and develop concepts around them?
That's right. And then through technology and the internet and understanding data, you could really just get a better feeling for things without just the food and beverage industry. It's really interesting. A lot of people, spend a lot of time to design, build out a place, conceptualize it, raise money, do all these things, but there's not a lot of, data that you're using. And then you're kind of like just taking a big bet at the end of the day that it's going to work. There must be a smarter way through data, through through all the technology that has continued to evolve. How do you leverage data to make better business decisions? How do you understand your consumer needs to then actually create more of what they're looking for, rather than just guess and hope that you were right? With Gary's ability with media technology, we just found that you could test concepts, you could deploy them very quickly. You could see what's working, what's not. and then, leverage and double down on certain things and have a much better success rate.
Yeah, and I might upset a few people when I say this, but I feel like prior to COVID-19, the industry was getting very reckless with taking multi-million-dollar shots in the dark. Like, let's hope this concept sticks, and just creating these concepts that are barely profitable. That you have to be, you have to win a James Beard Award or a Michelin star to even keep up with the costs, that had the volume to keep up with the cost of these operations. And then they want to point at the pandemic for the reason why they're not.
The pandemic accelerated a lot of things, but the industry was flawed before. It
was reckless before, and I try to point this out, and like this thing just quickly exposed our vulnerabilities. You know what I'm saying? And it's really smart now what we're doing to take, and I say this constantly, like, you can start a concept today, because a concept is, you can start the brand and start sharing your story and do pop-ups and see if there's traction with very little overhead, as much to start a website and to leverage a friendship. You can start a restaurant, and that's really all it takes. And then just capture all that with the media and start sharing the story, start building your email list, start getting contact information, and bring your journey, as Gary Vaynerchuk would call them, your tribe with you. Right.
Flyfish Club is a prime example of that. We don't have a physical restaurant yet, but I would argue that I built a stronger community in the last 4 months online through Discord, interacting with these people, doing virtual and physical events, popping up in real life and doing things with this amazing community, and obviously selling the token and all of these things. We're well capitalized. We have a real loyal fan base. We've got an active Discord. We're spending time with these people, so it's but we don't have a physical restaurant. So it's a little bit of a, it's a little messed up in a certain regard. Like before, you do all of these things and we're working really hard, but we're working in a different way right now. We're creating this brand, and it's all about the brand. And then the restaurant's going to happen, and the restaurant's going to be amazing. But there's other spokes to this wheel, and the brand lives in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah. And I mean, what's at the core of every relationship? Or I just gave you the answer. What's at the core of every business?
Relationships.
Exactly. That's all business is a series of relationships. You don't need a brick and mortar to start developing relationships today. And we could echo this for the rest of our time together, but I really want to start getting into, how do you start? Like, what did you learn about starting a brand with just literally a website and a few social handles? Like, where do you start if you want to take this approach?
Listen, I have to be very honest about what the relationship with Gary provides for us. Gary has a tremendous platform and microphone, and he's able to bring attention to things because of all the value he's created for people throughout the last 20 years.
For anybody who's listening to this who they don't know the name Gary Vaynerchuk, which I'm sure is very few of my listeners, who is Gary Vaynerchuk?
I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk is a serial entrepreneur, an amazing guy, co-founded Resi, created a direct-to-consumer wine business called Empathy that sold to Constellation, has a tremendous media agency called VaynerMedia, has a tremendous amount of investments from, founding shares of Facebook, of Twitter. He's one of the first movers, created Wine Library, where he brought, he created this show on YouTube. What was that?
It was tastings, right? He would taste wine.
Yeah, wine tastings, and built his father's wine business from $3 million a year to $60 million a year. He's just an absolute executor. Guy works, just nonstop. He's extremely thoughtful. He's a great guy. And that gives us a different ability. I just want to be honest about that, because it's not just so simple to just create a brand, create a website, and get people to know what you're doing. So
there's also a lesson here too with the idea of strategic partners. What are you trying to do? Who can you bring into the mix, and how can you leverage your relationships? And that you're doing it really
to execute. Like, it's great and it's bad, right? Like, we have a big, light shining on us, which brings a lot of attention. It puts us on third base, but it also, if we're not thinking about things thoughtfully, if we don't execute, if we mismanage something, it's going to be more quickly, seen and showcased because of the amount of eyeballs that are on us. So it cuts both ways, but we're confident operators and believe that, we're going to execute.
So you and Gary start VCR Group in 2000. As you, Gary, and you had a third partner. Next, you have two.
And also Connor Hanlon. So there's 4 partners, but VCR was Vaynerchuk, Capon, and Rodolitz.
Okay. You guys get that off the ground in 2021. Were you at this point thinking creating a restaurant with non-fungible tokens? Was that on your radar, or were you thinking just maybe membership, different model?
Listen, this all came quick. Like, we started this a little bit over a year ago. We've launched, we've opened Ito, we've launched Flyfish Club, which we're very happy of where it's at now. We've got a few other, products in the pipeline. So a lot's happened in that time, but, March, the company was being formatted. Gary came to my house. NFTs are everything. You got to wrap your head around this, get educated, do 100 hours of education, learn about it. So I did that for the next, month, absorbed it. Gary, in I think it was May, launched VFriends, his intellectual property project around all of these different characters that he plans to develop, through all different things between, games and movies and toys and, all of these different ways to, create business. It was a tremendous success. We saw that. And, then we were writing out different ways to use NFTs. And we've always liked members clubs. Members clubs accelerated over COVID. They became a little bit more hot again because there was a feeling that, being in a private space with people that, are in a private community might be a little bit safer than just going to public domains. So there was that happening. And I think it was just all this stuff, kind of coming around at the same time, NFTs and crypto. There's a lot of mystique and a lot of excitement towards a lot of people getting involved in that space. Gary became the trailblazer of NFTs, and we found an application that, took this membership model and flipped it on its head. And we just kind of had that aha moment where we're like, whoa, imagine if you owned your table at Rayos. Not that it's your table and you could go there and gift it to somebody, but imagine if you actually owned it as an asset. What would that be worth? What does that mean? And we were just like, whoa, this is big. Let's create this members only club where people are owners, they have an asset, and we're all aligned together to build this community.
So sorry, before Flyfish Club came into the picture, what was VCR's portfolio?
Flyfish Club was the first. Flyfish Club and Ito were the first 2 things that we've announced to date.
Okay.
All of us have, a lot of restaurants before our time of coming together. Josh was chef partner of a place called Lore and Bowery Meat Company and Burger and Barrel. Connor Hamlin was the culinary director for NoHo Hospitality Group, which, is a lot of the most, best restaurants from La Cana Verde, Dutch, Lafayette, Bar Primi. So, serial operators and, chefs and hospitality guys, that have done a lot before VCR Group, but we came together with our experience, but are now creating a new portfolio of food and beverage, concepts.
So you started sitting around, you said you were talking about the different ways to leverage NFTs. The first thing that came to mind, I've always been a fan of membership models because it's predictable cash flow. You know exactly how much you need and what you have coming in. So, there's zero waste. There's a lot less shrinkage. So I've always been a fan of the idea of memberships. Why does an NFT take a membership model to the next level? Why is it so much better?
For many reasons. The financial model is attractive. We generated it's all public. We generated north of $14 million through our NFT issuance in January in less than a minute. So that was the upfront sales or the issuing of the NFT. It's called the minting process, which is converting a digital file into a digital asset. So we have all this upfront money that allows us to build, build our dining club, build this community, produce in real life really special events, and do all of these things that are really hard for a restaurant group to do because margins are so small. So it's a very, we have all this money, and then we don't have investors, we don't have debt, we're very well capitalized, so it allows us to make decisions, that are not emotional, that, allow us to just think about the best decision. And then we could use our capital, and not have to do the whole song and dance, raise money, only own 20% of the business after, all of your investors now own the majority of it, which is also, a difficult, matrix. So, so you have the upfront sales through the smart contract, you have a royalty component. So since we've launched, there's been between 26 to $30 million that is traded hands on the secondary market.
Wait, what was it? 26 to what?
26 to $30 million has traded hands on the secondary market, which is basically like the eBay of NFTs. And the marketplace is called OpenSea. So this is proof that it's an asset. I don't get to approve this. I don't control it. People bought our token. Some decided to monetize it quickly, even though that's not what we wanted. We want people to hold on to it. They flipped their token. Some people made a lot of money. That's not what we're promoting.
Essentially, there's a fix when you launched, and I want to get into the details of where to start. If we're listening to this and like, this is a good idea, I want to do this in my city. Like, how do I what boxes need to be checked so I can even make this an option for myself? But how many total members can Flyfish Club have?
Yeah, so the entire collection is 3,035. We've sold about 1,500 on the original minting, and we held back pretty much like a clone set of the inventory, about half, because we need to make sure that the restaurant is going to be busy with local people. And, when you mint these tokens, you don't have control over who's buying them or where they're located. So, some people would say that that's a concern, or how do you know that, people are going to be frequenting your clubs? And that's why we designed that we've held back half the inventory that's in the Flyfish wallet. And we're going to hand sell each one of these tokens throughout the next course of the year to, local people that are going to use it, that are going to make this place better and cooler and more interesting. And so we have mechanisms and hedges in place that will make sure that, there's people enjoying Flyfish Club and making it, the best dining club that exists.
Okay. So I'm going to dumb this down. I'm going to use layman terms or basic Eric terms and to make sure I fully understand what's going on here. So when you created this NFT, you said we're going to take out, there's going to be 3,035 tokens, meaning 3,035 possible members at its maximum capacity. Yep. And then you only made half of those available. 1,535 of those were made available. They got bought up. When those first went, what was the approximate value USD for one token?
One token at the time, the Flyfish token, which gets you access to the restaurant, lounge, and cocktail bar, sold when we minted it for about $8,000. It was in Ethereum, but the USD was about 8,000. And the omakase token gets you access to everything I just told you, plus a private omakase room that'll be nestled away in a private part of the club. And that sold for about 16,000. When a lot of FOMO kicked in, in this NFT community, and it went a bit crazy after we minted and people started flipping them, a Flyfish token sold for as high as about 25,000, and a Flyfish omakase token went for north of 60,000. Now it's, simmered down and normalized. And a Flyfish token right now is going for about 3 Ethereum on a secondary market, or about $10,000. And the omakase is trading for somewhere around 10 Ethereum or around $30,000 on the secondary market.
Okay. So this is what you meant by the amount of when you said, what was it, 26 to 30,000 or 30 million US dollars have been transferred. That's the value of USD of the amount of membership.
Yes and no. So on the minting, we brought in a bit north of $14 million of selling our NFTs to individual people through the minting. That was the 1,500 tokens.
What's the definition of minting? What does that mean exactly?
It's converting a digital file into a digital asset on the blockchain. So the upfront sales of the 1,500 that we issued from us to you brought in north of $14 million. Now, we don't own those anymore. You own those. Those now are assets to 1,500 individual people. Some of those people decided to lean in to this and try to capitalize on it. And there was more interest than the supply of Flyfish tokens. And some, a lot of people were willing to pay more money for it at that time. So
a few people buy multiple tokens. Is there a limit how many tokens you can have?
We limited on the minting that people couldn't buy more than 2. Because we thought, people are married, they might want to gift it to, somebody that's important to them. So that was the logic of the 2. But some people bought multiples on the secondary market. So since the minting has been completed, those 1,500 tokens have now been resold to other people. Every day these are being sold, which is proof that it's an asset. So that is the 27, 29, $30 million number has traded hands on the secondary market, which we take a royalty of as well.
Okay, so you get a commission on every time one of your tokens gets sold to a new. Correct. What percentage is that commission?
10%.
Man, yeah, I'm starting to see why this is better than a standard flat rate membership model.
So when we get to opening the restaurant, we still have we want to make sure our restaurant operations are financially healthy and make money. But instead of just relying on restaurant EBITDA, we had NFT sales or upfront sales. We have ongoing royalties, and then we have restaurant EBITDA. Between those 3 components, we believe that gives us a really strong advantage.
Yeah.
We believe that we become a much stronger credit tenant to a developer. And we believe that we're going to be able to be less transactional to our customer base or our members, because we don't need to forward all the costs onto them, the supply chain issues, inflation, labor costs, because we have other ways of absorbing some of those hits now. And we could hopefully provide more value on the guest experience because of the different levers we have.
So paint the picture of Flyfish Club. What is your offering?
A private dining club curated by hospitality experts and incredible chefs, Josh Capon and Connor Hamlin, in addition to our omakase partners, Kevin Kim and Masa Ito. We believe that we're going to be producing some of the best food in a gorgeously designed space in a building that will be with one of the biggest developers in New York. It's going to be a place you want to be. No moment will be uncurated. We're going to take care of all of our guests and provide extreme hospitality, and it's going to be private. It's going to feel great. So that's a bit of like what we're envisioning.
10,000 square feet. Is it sectioned off? Are you creating like little micro spaces, or is it wide open?
I mean, there's going to be a lounge. There'll be a main dining room, which will be like the heart of the restaurant. And then the omakase room will be a private dining room.
Got it. So I guess the natural progression of today's conversation is, this sounds like a no-brainer. This is a much better business model than what I think a lot of people will agree that the way we've been doing things is kind of broken, and it's kind of just like rinse and repeat. This is what my boss did before me and his boss did before him. And like, let's just continue to do what we know, but what we know is broken. And I think it's what I'm trying to do with this podcast is transform the industry by showing people that there's different ways to do this. That's not the status quo, So thank you for kind of painting that picture. But if we want to do this, like, what steps have to be taken? Like, how do I create a non-fungible token? Like, what's that process?
So like everything, there's nuances to it, and you got to ask the question why, and make sure that you're really thinking about things in a very detailed way. I fear that, or what you're already seeing is there's just a tremendous supply of NFT projects by everybody and anybody. And a lot of these projects are going to fail. That's because there's a lot of projects that are hitting the market that don't really care about anything except for trying to make a quick bag of money. So I just want to
be made. There's also sketchy people in the loop.
That's right. So, you know, I just want to be clear that the value proposition and everything that you're doing has to be very thought out. You know, we have the benefit of having a partner like Gary that is very public about his position on NFTs, and, you know, brought a lot of excitement around Flyfish Club and VCR Group. So I don't want people to think that you could just come up with this and make all this money. You know, we definitely had a strong advantage of the, you know, of having Gary as a business owner here. You know, but we again have to be thinking about things in a very thoughtful way. If your intent is not real or good, it's going to be shown. So, you know, we spent a lot of money to build this out over 2021 between, you know, the Web3 partners, the front end designers, the back end full stack engineers, the 3 different artists that we had designing the tokens, designing the website. You know, I spent with my partners every day from May of last year to minting, designing this out, being on Zooms every day with 10 to 15 people. We absorbed a staff of 15 different people to build this out. We spent, you know, close to $1 million in 2021 to put this all together and to make sure that every touch point was thought out and that it made sense. So
$1 million of that, did that have anything to do with the actual build out of the restaurant, or is this just to get the token?
No, you know, again, people don't have to spend that amount of money to do what we did, you know, but that includes the minting costs, you know.
So when you say minting, again, I mean, it's weird because there's just a lot of terms being thrown around that are just different people, and it gets a little convoluted. So the first thing you need to do is, you know, have good intention. You know, really thought out proposition is what we covered. Then, okay, like, I'm gonna do this. What needs?
Started interviewing and finding the best people in Web3. We partnered with a company called Nameless that was involved with Gary and VeeFriends. We spent a lot of time with them talking about what we wanted to do, that we wanted to do something that has never been done before. They liked the challenge. We started, you know, interviewing different developers and designers, started speaking to what we wanted to create, what Flyfish Club would mean to us, who we are as operators, what were our passions, like, you know, lived it and built a team of, we believe, best in class people that were excited about it and equally, you know, passionate and wanted a challenge.
So you said build the team of Web3 developers. You said, what is
Web3? You know, full stack engineers. There's still a website that has a front end design, that has a back end development, a CRM that then connects to the Web3 component. So there's everything that you would need before NFTs ever came around. You still need come up with a brand, come up with the identity, you know, draw it out. What's your logo? What are your colors? What does it mean? You know, what is your brand description? What's your mission statement?
So so what I'm hearing is you spent up close to $1 million on building the framing, the digital framing, the place this is all going to live.
A large part of that was also the minting and converting these digital files into a digital asset and getting it on the blockchain and having it live there for people, for this to become a non-fungible token. So each purchase, you know, had a certain small percentage that cost money, you know, and that was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. The rest was team, was design, was logos, was buying the domain, was, you know, events, you know, payroll, G&A, legal, you know, all of these things that, you know, we probably overspent, but I wanted to make sure that we had the best people protecting us. I had trademark attorneys, you know, IP attorneys, you know, general, you know, corporate attorneys, NFT attorneys. Like, you know, we wanted to make sure that we thought through this and felt confident in what we were doing.
But you're also bringing up one of the biggest lessons I've learned when you're getting involved in the restaurant industry. Spend the money up front on a lawyer. If you're getting into waters you're not familiar with, the costs of the trouble you can get into, the nightmares you can create for yourself down the road are far more great than the cost of getting a lawyer to tell you how to do it right the first time.
I used to be penny wise, pound foolish on legal bills. And the best, in the last couple of years, I've really changed my mindset. And I speak to my attorney every day, who's now become a close friend. And I run every single thing through him. And he helps me strategize and make sure that, we're doing things in a smart way that's protected, because, you spend all this money on the back end doing damage control. Even if you had good intent, you could have just missed something, or laws could have changed. And, now I'd rather just spend up front and be in control of it, because you put in all this hard work, and then for something to fall apart that's out of your control because you just miscalculated something from a legal standpoint, I don't want that to happen anymore. So we spend up front, and I think the legal part is tremendous.
So get more into this process of minting and building the digital assets. So why did that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a digital asset? Like, when you say that, the actual the artwork around the token?
No, artwork and the artists, probably cost us somewhere in the tune of, $50,000-$75,000, between our token design and the website design and all of those things. The minting, the converting the file into the token, the gas costs of the computers, interacting to validate these transactions. There was a percentage of every single token that what was costs were absorbed, for that essentially to turn from that file into that asset for the people that bought that NFT. So our Web3 company, Nameless, this is what they do. And we designed everything. And then essentially they're the ones that, enabled the minting process and the smart contract, and for all of that to happen fluidly with our front end design, and for all of that to then be validated on the blockchain, and for that process to go smoothly. So I could speak to the high level of it, but they could only really speak to the nuances of it. So I really recommend that you do your research on your Web3 partner, make sure that they have other successful mints under their belt, and I would not be cheap with that piece, because you could really have a poor mint, or miscalculate something. So the minting costs were large, and then obviously it was also the cost of this company to provide this service. So it was a few percentage points of everything that we generated was paid to them for the hard costs and their services and their time, which was all well deserved.
Okay, so to get started, you need to create a type of token, a non-fungible token, and that process takes getting developers, coders, basically to build it all, the framing in the back end. And then on top of that, you need to make sure you're getting attorneys, you're getting the right legal. Then
I would say that the NFT part was secondary or third. First, you need to come up with a concept, like what are you doing, and why does it matter, and what's the value proposition? That's
like any other restaurant. What I feel like you need to have that kind of, what's your strategy, what's your strategic plan.
That's right.
But this stuff, like the actual the building out, the getting a token, where do you even start? Like, where, if you're doing this tomorrow, where's the first place to go? Who's the first person you call to get moving in the right direction? Is it reaching out to who was your Web3 developer?
Nameless. I think it's a combination of a Web3 partner, and I would look at some of the best projects. You could see, different stats on OpenSea of, projects that have gone well. It's all transparent information. From that, you could then, do your research to find out who was behind that project, jump in their Discord, learn more, who's the company, the Web3 company that helped them create this. I would then interview a lot of those people, speak to them, understand their bandwidth. If they had the time, do they like your vision? and is it a good partnership? And that's what I found with Nameless. They were, they were intrigued. They thought it was a challenge, and we went for it. Nobody's ever done a leasing component. We were the first people to announce to do that. So there were a lot of things that I think, excited all of us, and you want to do things that people haven't done before. That's the fun part, like learn, do something that's challenging, something that gets you out of bed. I would also say simultaneously speak with your attorney, someone that's very well versed or is trying to be in the Web3 space, because there's a lot of people that are doing things wrong. And there's regulation coming, which in my mind is a great thing. It shows you the boundaries and allows the people that have the right intent to operate confidently. We knew we had the right intent, and we knew we were doing everything above board, but a lot of people aren't doing things properly, or they're intending to do things wrong. And there's rug pulls, or there's bait and switches, and people are getting in trouble. People are going to jail.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I like to hear that.
I do too.
So anything you guys wish you did differently? Anything that you've learned the hard way that you can give somebody a heads up? Don't do what we did. There's a better way.
Oh God. I don't know if there's any, I actually I'm quite proud of our, it was very thought out, our collective team. We had great people around us. So I think, what we sought out to do, we really did. I would, the one hiccup that, and again, it's hard for me to fully speak to it because I'm not a Web3 developer, but, when we went to mint, it was 11 a.m. on this day. I think it was January 7th. And basically you have to activate your website, and you have to activate the contract. The contract is what is allowing people to mint, and that's what's connected to the blockchain. You want to do those two things simultaneously, so when the website goes live, people could start minting and there's no hiccup.
Yeah.
Our website, for the 2 months prior, we did a bunch of test updates to the website, and we wanted to see how long it would take for the website to go live with those newest changes. And every test that we did was between 6 and 7 minutes, that to deploy the latest changes, the front end design and all those changes would be shown 6 to 7 minutes later. So at 10:54 or 10:53, we then go to activate our website, because we wanted to be, 11 a.m. Everyone was ready to go mint. The activating the contract was a lot more seamless, and really just took us like a couple minutes. So we went and did that at 10:58, planning for all of that to be ready perfectly at 11 o'clock. And we did a lot of test runs on that. What happened is the contract got activated before the website. The website lagged and took longer. And what happened was somehow people that are very experienced in kind of crypto and in this world learned the contract address and was somehow able to mint directly, not through our website, but through the contract that our project was associated with. And about 50 or 60 tokens were minted within those couple of moments or minutes that there was this vulnerability. So,
vulnerability meaning it wasn't closed. The people's data was vulnerable.
No, nothing to do with people's data. That somehow certain people were able to mint before our website actually went live, and created a disadvantage to other people, which just made the supply. There was too much demand. There's very little supply, and some person that was experiencing this found this loophole and took some of the supply off the market. And we did our best to kind of control those things. The only other thing, it's something that we could change. I would say though is a little bit of a challenge. Is this NFT community and crypto? Everybody, it's very transparent. People are in the Discord. It's like a living and breathing thing every moment of the day, which is good, and it's also a little bit bad. And our project is different than other people's projects where, every day people are, people that are participating in other NFT projects are looking for news and announcements. They're expecting there to be all of this different movement every moment of these other projects that are more IP focused projects or collectible projects. And people are just kind of like, stuck to the floor price on OpenSea, or the floor price is the lowest price that you could buy the token. So there's this obsession over floor prices. Our project is an in real life dining club with a lot of other ancillary benefits of events, virtual events, content, education, etc. Our entire project is based on utility, where most other people's project is not utility. It has some other, purpose or value proposition that is getting people excited to buy their NFT project. So, even though we conveyed this and shared that it's all about utility and the club's opening next year and don't worry about floor price, like, I don't care about the floor price at all, because I know what we're doing and I know what it's likely going to look like in a year from now. That being said, there's a lot of people that bought our token, even knowing, our long-term intent. Some people are just speculative NFT investors and are just buying tokens to flip them and are obsessed with the floor price and are in the Discord, creating a little bit of negativity. And, I think that's just a challenge of this industry. And, other projects that, have not gone well, there's just a lot of people that, are just always focused on the floor price and, expecting big news every day. And, I can't live in the Discord. We're operating. I'm in the city 3 days a week meeting with developers. We're building out our plans. You don't want to see me in the Discord. If I'm in the Discord, that means I'm not operating.
Exactly.
So, that's a big challenge, I'd honestly say, is managing expectations of this crypto NFT environment, and trying to match our intent with their intent.
Yeah. So of this 1,500 or tokens that are out, what percentage of those people would you say are actually excited about the club and using the facility? Or
I would say the majority. Okay. I would say about 80 to 90%. But that minority could create a lot of negativity, and they could be very vocal in a 10,000 person Discord. So it's a small subset, but they can magnify their feelings and amplify their feelings. And
always the smallest percentage that makes the biggest noise.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I hear you, man. If we want to learn more, is there a way we can give us a call?
Flyfishclub.com. Our Flyfish Club Instagram and Twitter is our handle. Get in our Discord at Flyfish Club. You can follow me at Rodolitz on most social handles. My partner, Josh Capon, is at Chef Capon, and also Connor Hanlon, and obviously Gary Vaynerchuk. Find us on social. We're very communicative about what we're doing, and we appreciate everybody's support.
David Rodolitz, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, to share your knowledge. There is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
I appreciate you guys. Take care.
Cheers.